I'm Genevieve Collins, State Director here in Texas for Americans for Prosperity.
You have got a massive amount of terrain to cover. You've got these regional issues, never mind just statewide issues, and then you have this federal issue of immigration that is piled on top of it. To what extent is immigration part of the AFP portfolio for you?
It's a massive portion of our portfolio. Border security and the economy are the number one and number two issues in the state of Texas. And you know what I've been trying to broadcast around the rest of the country is that because of the Biden administration's failed policies around immigration, now every state is a border state, and making sure that every state is actually holding their members of Congress accountable for doing nothing. And there seems to be just a consistent desire for Congress to do nothing. And now, because Texas has such large terrain, you're right. It is a massive issue. It's the number one issue for Republican primary voters, and then the economy. And we're going to see that play out bigly over the next year.
Let's talk about the people who want to do nothing or are doing nothing, because it would seem odd to me that a member of Congress in Texas who deals with this on the daily, certainly their constituents deal with it on the daily, do zero. Is it that you bring up the subject and they don't respond, or you bring up the subject and they don't care about responding?
Well, so there's two things happening here in Texas with our members of Congress. We do have a lot of leadership coming from different members of Congress here in Texas trying to solve the problem, whether that's Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar, as well as Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. They share a huge swath of the Rio Grande border. In addition, our Senator John Cornyn, they have all jointly written policy called the Bipartisan Border Solutions Act to begin solving some of the issues for Customs and Border Patrol, uh, solving some of our infrastructure and asylum seeking reforms. So there is stuff that's happening. But there's also Chip Roy has a bill. There's a lot of folks that are trying to do well because it's immediately affecting all of our communities. It's a public safety issue, not just a humanitarian crisis, not just a drug crisis. But the problem is that outside of Texas, so many other members of Congress see it as an easier political football, and they're able to score points with it rather than solve the issue. So it's easier to just let it continue to fester rather than solve.
We often hear about this even before October 7th when we talk about the Hamas attack on Israel.
Yeah.
Palestinians as cause versus Palestinians as state. The idea that utilizing them as pawns to a rallying cry or a fundraising cry or a cry to violence is much more advantageous for those powers that be that want to continue to be powerful than actually figuring out how a state could be created and could be run. You're arguing that there's the same type of power play happening in the federal government, in Congress. It doesn't matter how many elections we have so far.
Absolutely. Tony, no one has solved the issue since the 80s. It's not like fewer people are coming. In fact, more and more and more people are coming to the tune of over 2 million people that have single handedly just been apprehended. Those aren't the folks that have gotten away from Customs and Border Patrol. These are the people that we've actually found, discovered, apprehended, processed. We can't even count the countless millions of people that have come across our borders illegally since the Biden administration. So, yes, it is exactly the same process that you were just describing. It's easier to keep it an issue rather than to solve it because now I can fundraise off of it. I can, create ideological battlefields. I can do so much more as a member of Congress with the issue rather than solving it. And it's at the detriment of the American people. It's at the detriment of the rule of law, and it's at the detriment of making sure that we have a nation with borders.
Talking to Genevieve Collins, she is the state director of Americans for Prosperity. Let's talk about the reasons why we see people coming to the United States. As we often discuss it, what's the draw? What is the in? If I were to engage culturally, all I'm told is that America is a hateful and bigoted and awful, oppressive place. Yet you see people trying to get in the door constantly. As you talk to these members of Congress, or at least trying, as you talk to Border Patrol members, I was on the border. I think you were there with me on the border there at McAllen. What is the number one draw right now for people trying to get into the U.S.?
It's hope. You know, only hope is the greater. Only hope is Jeff Bridges said this, which is a strange person to quote for this statement, but hope is the only emotion that's greater than fear. And people are coming to this country because America is the shining beacon of hope. We have an economy that people can immediately go to work. We have opportunity, and it's hard to put a price tag on opportunity when your own country has none. And what we keep forgetting is that America is the land of the free, it's the land where opportunity exists and anyone can prosper. It's the American dream, it's the American ideal. And at any cost, someone will come here to flee for a better life because there's freedom, opportunity, and prosperity.
You didn't mention freebie. This is the conversation we hear a lot. And don't get me wrong, if we were to engage politically, we'll hear the political left discuss how we have to give this and we have to give that, and there has to be housing and there has to be this. But in terms of how you are hearing these people at the border, that didn't come up in your list. So is it
Not at
that you
all.
forgot, or is it that that's never the case? That's just talking point from a political left point of view.
It's the latter. People are happy to work. If they have made such a dangerous journey, they're not afraid of doing the hard work. They're not afraid of having a 2,000-mile journey that is treacherous, remarkably dangerous, fraught with cartels. These people are unafraid of doing the hard work. And people want to come here because their own economy, their own country has no opportunity, has no options, that they're fleeing a place of misery, of tyranny, of deprivation, that these folks, they will come solicit America for an opportunity to succeed, for a dream to be a part of the greatest country on earth. And so the left completely forgets that. And, these folks, they're doing the jobs that a lot of people don't want to do, that most Americans don't want to. And they may not love it, but they are dang happy to be here, to have a work visa, to contribute, to own their own business, to have a family here, and be a part of the American dream. And the left hates that narrative, but that's the
Well,
reality.
let's take just a moment back, and certainly the idea. I think sometimes people here do the jobs that Americans don't want to do, and they don't recognize that if we're talking about agriculture alone, you have got a massive amount of job openings and a very tiny
Yeah.
number of Americans applying for those jobs. Using that as an example, but what if I said to you that the idea that people are coming for opportunity and not coming because they know that a left-leaning America is going to give them a handout, that's a naive take, Genevieve. That is a naive point of view playing into talking points politically, and it should be opposed. How do you respond to that?
If anyone's trying to say that people want to work hard is being naive, then move to Texas. Texans know what hard work is. We deal with it every day. And to say that someone who traverses this incredible, arduous, painful, difficult journey just is coming here because they want a handout is really callous and very shallow. And I think that you're undermining the human dignity of somebody. And people see America as a place that respects human dignity and human progress and the ability to work hard and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There are countless examples, time over and again, how people have done that since 1776.
Texans don't seem opposed to the idea of immigration. Even when people are discussing shutting down the border and maybe possible reasons for shutting it down to get the system in play, I did not experience in my time McAllen, which admittedly was a short time. I have many more trips to take throughout the Texas border. I did not encounter, whether it be my Uber driver or whether it be restaurants, what have you, people saying we should shut the border. That didn't come up. Is Texas a believer that Governor Greg Abbott should shut it down no matter what Biden says? Let him fight you on it.
I mean, Texans believe that we need border security. Fundamentally, security is not the same as shutting down. Security is making sure that our communities are safe. That is the sole responsibility of the government, is to make sure that they're protecting their people and their citizens. And when you got cartels coming over in droves, threatening the public safety of communities, bringing in death drugs like fentanyl, uh, we need to curtail a lot of that. That doesn't necessarily mean shut the border down, but it does mean secure the border. We need infrastructure. That can be a wall, that can be raised wire, that can be buoys. You see, this federal government is now suing Greg Abbott for trying to secure our border that the federal government won't. We want border security because border security and economic security are immediately tied. When you have border security, you can have better flow of trade. You can have more people economically lifting themselves up. You can have more certainty from an economic standpoint when you know the border is secure. And under no circumstance do we want to have a porous border. That means we don't have a nation with defined boundaries. That's not what Texans want. We're very proud of Texas. You talk to any Texan, they'll tell you how great it is here, right? We want
True.
to make sure that our country, but that's how Texans think of ourselves, that but our state, but also our country have rule of law. This is completely acceptable. These are not two, divergent concepts. That we need border security, but we need the federal government to stand tall and say, no, we want people to come here, but we want people to come here legally. We want people to come here safely, and we want people to contribute to the American dream, have their version of the American dream.
Genevieve, you talk about Henry Cuellar, the congressman, who has been very open about the failures of the Biden administration on the border and the issues with the border. Is there, amongst Texans, a bipartisan feel regarding border security?
No, no, not from a legislative standpoint. Our Texas legislature meets every 2 years. And right now, we are in our fourth special session because our Texas House didn't get all of their work done. And we're talking about border security. And the Republicans are fighting the Democrats, and the Democrats are saying, this is not how we need to do it. This we need to, talk about it in a humanitarian way. So no, there's not consensus, but there is consensus on there being a problem. There's not consensus on a solution. And that really, Tony, goes back to your original question, right? Like, how come no one's really actually trying to solve the problem? It's because it's an inconvenient solution that very few people agree on how to do it.
They don't agree on how to do it, or they don't want to agree because doing it is the problem in and of itself.
Bingo.
Genevieve Collins, she is the state director of Americans for Prosperity. Appreciate you taking the time.